Miami Dolphins fans, this is the moment you should be fired up. Because what's happening in Miami right now isn't just a storyline, it's a shift. And at the center of it all is safety Minkah Fitzpatrick, a player whose journey has come full circle in ways nobody could have predicted. Drafted by Miami, moved on after a messy fallout, became a star in Pittsburgh, and now, after returning to the Dolphins in the offseason as part of the Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith deal, everything about his situation felt tense. Early in the year, it looked like he didn't want to be back in Miami. His energy felt distant, his role felt uncertain, and many wondered if his second stint with the Dolphins was destined to be short-lived. But then something changed. After the win over the Saints, Dolphins media captured a moment that said more than any press conference ever could. Surrounded by teammates in the locker room, Minkah said, "No other group I'd rather be doing this with. Love y'all. Let's keep stacking. Let's finish these last 5 games strong." That is not the voice of a player with one foot out the door. That is a player buying in. And right around this point in the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with your friends, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. Now, back to the Dolphins. As the season has unfolded, the team hasn't been perfect, but they've found ways to battle. They've won 4 of their last 5 games. The young talent is growing. The locker room energy is shifting, and Minkah Fitzpatrick seems to feel it too. A month ago, it honestly looked like he might push for a trade or a mutual parting in the offseason. Today, he looks like someone who wants to stay and lead. Remember earlier in the year, after the Panthers game, when Miami blew that 17-point lead, Minkah refused to speak to the media. That's rare for a veteran of his stature, and it felt like he was disconnected from the team's internal heartbeat. But that version of Minkah is gone. This Minkah has been locked in, vocal, and flat-out dominant. What he has done on the field hasn't gotten enough national attention. Playing multiple roles, from safety to nickel corner, he's been one of the most versatile and reliable defenders in the entire league. Look at the numbers. Among safeties with at least 50% of defensive snaps this season, Minkah ranks near the top in overall performance. Elite in coverage, strong in run defense, and one of the most adaptable defenders in football. He has become Miami's Swiss Army knife, a weapon that defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver can deploy anywhere, anytime. And considering how many injuries and lineup changes Miami has had this season, his impact has been nothing short of essential. What Minkah Fitzpatrick has done for this defense goes beyond simple stats or job titles. This season, he's taken on more snaps as a nickel corner than at his natural spot at free safety. And honestly, that flexibility has been a lifeline for Miami. He's lined up in the slot, dropped deep, stepped into the box for over 160 snaps. Wherever the Dolphins needed stability, he stepped right into the fire. And thank goodness he did, because this secondary has been battered from the moment training camp started. One corner after another went down. Key contributors missed weeks. Starters hit injured reserve. Depth players never made it back on the field. Miami has watched nearly an entire cornerback room rotate in and out with injuries. And yet, through all of it, Minkah Fitzpatrick never missed a game. 12 straight weeks. Every snap, every assignment, every challenge. He's held the back end together with sheer consistency. And when Miami shifted him primarily inside to nickel, everything changed. Look at what he's done in coverage. Yes, quarterbacks have completed passes his way. That naturally happens when you're lined up in the toughest part of the field. But the damage? Minimal. Barely over 8 yards per catch. Fewer than 200 total yards allowed all year. Only 1 touchdown surrendered. For pass breakups. And a massive interception. Plus the would-be second one on that pick too that nearly sealed the Saints game. He has been a wall in the middle of the field. But what makes this run even more remarkable is why he's playing nickel in the first place. This wasn't the plan. If Miami had stayed healthy, if guys like Jason Marshall Jr. or Cornell Armstrong were still available, Minkah likely stays at his natural roaming safety role. Injuries forced the Dolphins' hand, and out of necessity came revelation. The real turning point? Week 5 against Carolina. The defense still gave up points in weeks 5 and 6, but from that moment forward, the identity of this unit began to shift. The first month of the season, Miami's defense was one of the worst in the league, second to last in efficiency. Now, they've climbed into the middle of the pack overall. Top 10 against the run. Stronger every week. More disciplined. More confident. More physical. Some will point to the schedule and say the opponents haven't been elite, But that argument falls apart fast when you look at the running backs they've had to face. Bijan Robinson, Derrick Henry, James Cook. These are not easy matchups, and yet Miami's defense has responded with force, especially against the ground game. Ever since they were gashed in back-to-back weeks earlier in the season, this group has played with a completely different attitude, a refusal to be pushed around, a commitment to swarming the football, a sense that every snap is personal. And Minkah Fitzpatrick has been at the heart of that transformation, the steady presence that's turned a battered secondary into a fighting, resilient, top-tier run defense. When you look at this Dolphins defense right now, it's finally becoming something fans have been begging for all season: solid, reliable, and capable of holding its own. Not elite, not unstoppable, but good enough to give this team a real chance, which is all anyone asked for back in August. With so many pieces changing and the roster not as stacked as in previous years, an average defense felt like a realistic goal, and Miami is finally reaching it. But the real story here circles right back to Minkah Fitzpatrick. We've already talked about how strong he has played and how his words in the locker room signaled a shift in mentality, not just for the moment, but possibly for the long-term future. And that brings us to the big question facing Miami's front office after the season ends. What do you do with Minkah Fitzpatrick moving forward? Because his contract isn't small, and the decision isn't simple. Next year, Minkah carries a major cap hit, nearly $19 million, while only a small fraction of that total is guaranteed. Miami has options, but none of them come without difficult consequences. A post-June 1st move would create significant savings, while anything earlier would pile up dead money and barely open room at all. And yet, can you really picture this defense without him? He's 30 next season, but he's playing some of the best, most versatile football of his career. That's what makes the decision so complicated. Do you keep him at nickel, where he's been incredible, even though nickel corners rarely receive contracts at this level? Or do you shift him back to free safety, a spot where the Dolphins struggled earlier in the year? It's a crossroads for the franchise. On one hand, paying top-tier money for a nickel corner isn't something teams usually do. That position is hugely important in today's NFL, but the market simply doesn't match the salary level Minkah would command if he stayed there full-time. On the other hand, you cannot deny what he has meant to this team. His leadership, his versatility, his toughness, his consistency in a season where the secondary has been decimated. Cutting him is an option, technically. Restructuring is another, though risky because of his age. Keeping him as is may be the hardest path financially, but the strongest path defensively. And here's where it gets interesting. Even though Miami's defense started the season near the bottom of the league, while Minkah played primarily at free safety, the struggles weren't entirely on him. It was a combination of injuries, scheme shifts, and early season chaos. You can make a real argument that if he returns to free safety with a healthier, more stable lineup around him next year, he could anchor the back end and elevate the entire unit again. What's clear is this: Minkah Fitzpatrick has proven his value. He's shown he's still a difference maker, and he's earned the right for Miami to seriously consider keeping him in aqua and orange, even with a tough contract and tough decisions ahead. When you go back and study Minkah Fitzpatrick's early season film, the truth becomes undeniable. He wasn't just good at free safety, he was elite. Through the first 4 weeks, he ranked among the very best safeties in the entire league, proving that his instincts, range, and intelligence were still operating at an elite level. The drop-off people saw in Pittsburgh? That version of Minkah didn't follow him to Miami. He looked refreshed, energized, and completely locked in. That's why keeping him for one more season, even at a higher price tag, still makes sense. If he returns to free safety, Miami can search for a dedicated nickel corner without overextending his responsibilities. And with the way he's played this year, both in the slot and deep, he's earned that flexibility. But the value he brings goes beyond alignment and contract numbers. This season, as chaos hit the secondary and injuries piled up, Minkah's voice became louder. His leadership grew. Younger players leaned on him. Veterans responded to him. Even as major pieces were traded away and the depth chart shifted every week, he stood firm, and the defense followed his tone. With him back at safety, Miami could build something sustainable. A defense with structure. A defense with options. A defense where Minkah is free to roam, step into the box when needed, rotate into nickel in certain packages, and elevate the players around him. And the Dolphins will have options at nickel corner next season. Jason Marshall Jr. can compete for the job after showing flashes early on. Kader Kohou, recovering from a major knee injury, could return on a team-friendly deal and bring immediate experience and familiarity with the system. Free agency or the draft also offer younger, affordable possibilities, players with upside who wouldn't force Miami into cap trouble. The defensive line, once a major issue early in the season, has also turned a corner. Young linemen are finally finding their footing. Veterans are stepping up. With a more stable front, the pressure on the secondary won't be nearly as heavy next year. All of this points to one thing. Minkah Fitzpatrick is still a cornerstone. He's still a leader. He's still someone you build around, not someone you replace. Miami just needs the right supporting pieces around him.